Today I have the great pleasure of interviewing one of the most famous journalists of our time. From breaking hard-hitting stories, creating documentaries and showing us his fabulous tie and sock collection, it is of course Jon Snow. Thank you very much for your time, Jon.
Thank you.
As a journalist, you're required to be politically correct at all times, and even with your blog, your work is censored. How much do you feel that you're...
Censored's quite a strong word. I mean, I'd say it's adjusted, yes.
Adjusted. How much do you think that your position as a reporter infringes your freedom of speech?
I don't think it does, really. I think that, we're a regulated industry at the electronic end, and the regulation is really about balance. I have no objection to balance. I think it's up to viewers to make up their own minds. I don't think it's for us to sort of ladle a view down their throats. But I think inevitably, one woman's objectivity is maybe different from one man's objectivity. No two human beings see things the same way.
Do you ever feel that when you have a particular belief about something and you can't voice it because of your position as a journalist, does that ever affect you?
Not really, no. I think you look for ways around these things. I don't think you can ever deny the way you see a story. You arrive in a country and there's a problem of one sort or another. You're bound to form a view from talking to people, from looking and the rest of it. And it may not be, what you might call the neutral view. But on the other hand, I think the best journalists are politically motivated, like it or not. They want to change the world. They want things to be better. That immediately means you're not happy with the status quo. That immediately means you are perhaps biased in favour of change.
In the film Good Night and Good Luck, broadcast journalist Edward Morrow gives an end-of-career speech about how the news industry has changed so much from when he first started as a journalist, and how entertainment and sponsorship has ruined serious reportage. How much has it changed since you first began, and do you think Morrow is right?
No, I think Morrow's wrong. I think in my working lifetime, things have simply got better and better. I mean, clearly there are problems, but fundamentally, if you think how difficult it was to retrieve information, how difficult it was to transmit it, we had to work on film. Sometimes stories took 3 days to get onto the television. You had to find a plane to ship the film on. You had to find a bath to chemically process the film, etc., etc. Now, clearly, instant capacity can mean a reduction in the depth of what you're actually doing. But I think in the main, this is the dawning of the golden age of television, the democratization of information. It's no longer a one-way street in which I tell you what's going on. It's very possible that I may want you to help me tell what's going on, because you may have an access that I don't have.
So how do you think social networking sites play a role in that? Do you think that they benefit coverage of news as well?
I think social network sites serve several purposes. One is they occasionally tip you off to something that's going on. Quite often they're wrong, but you've got to factor that in. You've got to recognise that you're not looking at the Holy Grail when you're looking at the social network, but you may get a tip that something is moving. You can also find people who may be able to help you unravel a story. I think that the use of Twitter enables one to lead people to water. In other words, I think it's perfectly possible to get people to read in much greater depth or view in much greater depth by giving them a hint. For example, when I came out of Haiti the last time, there was a very good piece in the Wall Street Journal, but quite a long piece, about why aid isn't working to Haiti. So I just tweeted, if you want to know why aid isn't working to Haiti, read this, and then boom, there was the link. So I think it's very good for journalism.
You recently wrote a blog entitled U-Turn about how government and ministers do not change their minds because of fear of looking cowardice. You, in the past, made a bold statement about not wearing the poppy on television. Is that something that you feel you would U-turn on after hearing the backlash and counter opinions?
No, I don't feel any inclination to U-turn at all. I don't think it's up to us to wear any emblems at all. I could wear a crucifix, or I could wear a green ribbon for, you know, one thing or another, a pink ribbon, whatever it is, or I could wear, I mean, look, once you start, you can go anywhere. Now, everybody says, no, the poppy transcends that. It's about those who died that we might be free. Which is the thing is, they really died that we might be free not to wear a poppy. Free to make that decision. And I respect that. And I made that decision not to wear one. And I don't wear one simply because I don't think we should wear emblems on air. Where does it stop? Also, there's a lot of out-poppying the next person. You know, you go to the House of Commons one day and then you suddenly see every single MP's wearing a poppy and you feel, well, this is not quite what it's about. The poppy should be a very deeply personal decision. If I want to wear a poppy, I will, but I won't wear it on television. I'll do it, you know, in my private life.
Yeah. Which I think, regardless of whether I agree with you or not on that, I think it's great that you're able to hold back from wearing the poppy on television, and you're not obliged to it because of...
No, if you worked for the BBC, you would probably be obliged to. I've never seen anybody at the BBC not wearing a poppy. Do you wear a poppy?
I do, yes.
But that's a personal decision. You haven't been told to wear it.
No.
No. Well, I think there are, unfortunately, a lot of people who keep telling you to wear poppies, and I don't like that. I think it's a personal decision.
You gave a fantastic talk at Queen Mary about the...
Steady, don't overdo it.
It really was fantastic, it was.
Viewer, there's clearly a problem here.
It was a fantastic talk about the Middle East and the uprisings, and about how much of it isn't represented on television by the media. You actually travelled to the Middle East. What did you see out there that we aren't shown as viewers?
Well, I think the biggest problem is that the Middle East per se, and North Africa too, is actually not an area many people really know very much about. I mean, they know that there's a struggle between Israel and Palestinians, and that there's dispute over territory and the rest of it. But for the rest, you know, where's Egypt, where's Syria, where is Yemen? I mean, people are vague even as to the geography. And I think the difficulty, therefore, is that people say, Arab Spring, all the Arabs are uprising. Well, they're not. And anyway, each time it happens in a different country, it's actually very different. It's different causes, different movements. I mean, one of the problems in Syria is that the uprising is so disparate. There is no figurehead, there's no particular organization really of any great note. Whereas in Libya there was, and in Egypt in a different way there was a sort of leadership you could identify. And they're not all the same. And I think what is very difficult to bring across to people who don't really understand the region is how different each of these conflicts is.
And for you to have travelled to the Middle East at such a time, do you feel politically and morally engaged to this on a personal level as well as...
I think every time you've ever experienced anything in any country, you feel a kind of engagement and some degree of commitment. I mean, because you can so vividly imagine the people, the place, the feeling, the smells. I feel much less engaged with countries I've never been to. And I think that argues very, very strongly in this great golden age of journalism to put boots on the ground, to get people out there. Yeah. I don't think second-hand journalism is really going to be much value. Just rewriting something that somebody else has done, or lifting blogs or whatever, that's a waste of time. You have to have somebody people trust, go there, report, be, you know, and interact too, obviously.
Yeah. You also went to Japan after the tsunami earthquake, which must have been a very emotional experience for you. How did you maintain professionalism at when covering such a devastating story as the tsunami? It's
a very delicate balance between not denying the emotional impact on you and deluding perhaps the viewer into believing that in some way it's a completely manageable thing and this is it. So it has to be a balance between enabling the viewer to share some sense of the grief and utter despair, and at the same time understand what's going on. I mean, it's no good breaking down and crying in front of the camera. That is not a good idea. If you've got to cry, go and do it in the corner. The big thing is really clarity, but emotional honesty.
And did you have a cry in the corner?
I did. I think you're bound to. I mean,
Yeah.
a very old lady came up to us. We were standing on the causeway looking down at rescue services. They were doing no more than rescuing bodies. They weren't rescuing anybody alive. And as we watched, she came up and said, "Have you seen my husband? He was driving a silver van." And there in the water, there must have been 30 or 40 silver vans. I mean, there were white vans and red vans and cars and all the rest of it. And obviously, we said, no, she said he was somewhere here this morning, you must have seen him, you know, and she was perhaps 80, you know, and it's hard to cope with that.
And just a final question, your sock and tie collection, is it all your own?
It's all my own, yeah, I buy them, I choose them, I wear them, and I do so because it's the cheapest part of your apparel that you can make some kind of a statement with. I mean, if I wanted to wear really slazzy suits, etc., it would be very, very expensive. And shirts too. I mean, ties and socks, you can get away with spending quite little.
Okay, well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. And will you be on the news tonight?
I will, I'm afraid, yes, with these socks and this tie.
Brilliant. Well, I'll definitely be watching.
In the end, you have to have some sort of trademark.
Yeah.
And this is it. And of course, sadly, one will come back from Japan or one will come back from the Middle East, and all they want to talk about is your socks and your ties. In a sense, one should say one has failed. But at the same time, they told us we should never wear garish colours on the television. They were right, but I like it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay? How's that? You're watching Anila Dhami's interviews. Stay tuned. She told me to say that.